Good afternoon and welcome to Engage in Trade, Tech Talent, H1B Visas and Opportunities in St. Louis. My name is Stella Sheehan and I'm the Deputy Director here at the World Trade Center. I want to thank you all for taking the time to join us this afternoon. I know it's a busy time of year, so we do appreciate you taking the time to join us today for this very important and timely topic. Being an immigrant myself, although not an H1B visa holder, this certainly is of special significance to me. So of the 120,000 tech workers who were recently laid off across the country, it's estimated that 10,000 of those are international tech talents with an H1B visa. Time is of the essence when these workers are laid off, as they have only 60 days in which to get a new job, switch their visa, or leave the country. How easy is it to switch the worker's visa in this case from an old to a new employer? And what's the best way to do so? We'll delve into those questions and more this afternoon. So just a few housekeeping rules before we begin. You will be muted for the duration of the presentation. If you wish to ask questions, please do so via the Q&A function at the bottom of your screens, and we'll do our best to get to as many of those after the formal discussion. It's now my great pleasure to introduce our Executive Director, Mr. Tim Nowak. Tim has led the World Trade Center for over 15 years now, bringing years of international business experience in Africa, Asia Pacific, Europe, the Middle East, and South America. He's a 2014 Eisenhower Fellow and a proud Mizzou grad. Over to you, Tim.
Thank you, Stella, and thanks to our entire group for taking time on short notice to put together this program. And thanks to all of you for joining us today for this timely discussion. In the interest of time, and because we want to get as much as we can out of our really esteemed panel, I won't read their full bios. These are located on our website, and so if you have an interest, you can read their full bios there. But I will just give you a snippet for each one, and then have them join us here on the virtual stage. The first is Betsy Cohen. Does she really need an introduction? Most of you know Betsy. We love Betsy, and she is the executive director of the St. Louis Mosaic Project, which is a program in the World Trade Center St. Louis and a part of the St. Louis Economic Development Partnership to have St. Louis and the region become the fastest growing major metropolitan region for foreign-born talent by 2025. Betsy had a prior career as an executive at Nestle Purina, leading their marketing efforts. She's a graduate of Wellesley College and of the Harvard Business School. Thank you, Betsy, for being with us today. Second, we have Emily Hemingway. Emily is the founding executive director of Tech STL, the first tech council of Greater St. Louis, where her team is working to make St. Louis the most diverse innovation hub in the country by 2027. We like the sound of that, Emily. Emily transforms communities through entrepreneurship and innovation. She is committed to fostering equitable economic opportunities by empowering regions through data-driven strategic planning, public-private partnerships, and leading-edge community advancement practices. Thanks for being here, Emily. Third is Michelle King. Michelle is Vice President of Talent Acquisition, Diversity, and Inclusion at Reinsurance Group of America, RGA. RGA is a leader in the global life reinsurance industry. Michelle is responsible for driving global strategy and execution of talent acquisition initiatives for RGA, including recruitment, diversity, immigration, and mobility matters. And we're so happy to have you with us today as well. Thanks, Michelle. And last, but certainly not least, is somebody who's been on a couple of our programs. She's a speaker all throughout the region. And so we're certainly happy to have her here with us today, Nalini Mahadevan. Nalini is the principal attorney for MLO Law, LLC, and has been in practice since 2003, specializing in immigration, estate planning, and special needs. Her clientele includes both corporate employers and individuals. Nalini's career started off as a corporate lawyer in India before relocating to the United States. She holds an undergraduate degree in accounting, a master's degree in law from the University of Mumbai, India, and an MBA from Washington University in St. Louis, and a JD from St. Louis University School of Law. My goodness. So Nalini, thank you for joining us here again today. I'm going to turn things back over to Stella, and we certainly look forward to the conversation and the feedback and the advice from this group.
Thank you so much, Tim. And so just want to welcome our esteemed panelists. Thank you for being with us. As Tim mentioned, at very short notice, we kind of scrambled to put this together. So really appreciate you being here. So Betsy, we're going to kick it off with you. Why is this topic so important at this time?
Well, if you can imagine that over 10,000 H1B visa holders were losing their jobs in November and being told in the holiday season that you've got 60 days to find a new job. Otherwise, you may have to return to your home country or try to find some other visa. And this is happening at the same time that our region and many other, particularly Midwest regions, are looking for talent. And we'll talk about that a little later. But we have entrepreneurial companies, startup companies that could be hiring these H1B visa holders that can quickly transfer their visa. We have large companies that all have technology jobs open. We have some of our candidates that are on this call as well who are saying, you know, gosh, I might be losing my job in one of our coastal cities, but I hear that St. Louis has openings that either are based in St. Louis or they might be based remotely. And that is really of interest to me. We have also been in touch with a website and a founder of an organization called GoZeno, and I'm asking Stella to put that in the chat, where they are posting the resumes of candidates that have lost their job, that currently have an H1B visa, and are very quickly looking to find a new home, in the hopes that some of our employers that are on this call might be interested in checking out some of these talents. If you can post that, please. That's what's important.
Will do. Thanks, Betsy. I think Annie's gonna take care of posting that in the chat for us. And so, Emily, to you, speaking of the tech jobs that Betsy just referenced, can you tell us a little about the role Tech STL plays in attracting and retaining tech talent in the region?
Sure. So we are a newly established tech council here in St. Louis. We're the first tech council. We've been around for about a year. So we are really working to be not only the loudest voice on behalf of the data economy and emerging technology here, but really serving, leveraging the fact that we're a membership-based organization and we have the ability to connect everything from our STEM education partners to our tech talent pipeline partners to our corporate and startup community as well. So it's, you know, our biggest focus is to support tech jobs, tech startups, and tech innovation. Recruiting and retaining our tech talent is the top priority, right? I mean, we have in St. Louis, we cover the 15 county bi-state region, which is the full MSA. And we have over 38,000 open tech jobs right now in the community. This is a big need that we have all over the country. And we're definitely feeling that here in St. Louis, where we have so many corporate partners and tech companies here in the region that they are actively trying to find the talent that they need in order to grow. So jumping into this opportunity and leveraging the fact that we have open positions, that we have a great quality of life here, that we are a wonderful city for young families and for foreign-born families, that we're making sure that they see the job opportunities that we do have here in St. Louis for them.
Great, thanks so much, Emily. And now to Michelle, what role has foreign-born talent played in RGA's ability to fill some of those open positions?
That's a great question. And I think for us, like most organizations, having foreign-born workers available to us gives us one more avenue to find talent in a market, particularly coming out of the pandemic. We've all heard of the Great Resignation, right? The group of individuals that chose not to go back into the workforce or finding new ways, not available to corporations any longer as a pool of talent. Top talent is always scarce talent, no matter what type of environment you're in. Particularly having a pool of talent that we can tap into that gives us one more avenue to identify talent for a number of openings, particularly in a company like ours that's global, not only gives us an opportunity to attract talent, but it also gives individuals an opportunity to work in an area and find a job that actually they can impact projects around the globe. So it's been significant for us. It's an avenue that we pursue as one more way for us to identify talent.
Wonderful. I love that phrase. Top talent is scarce talent. So how true is that, especially in this economy? Thank you, Michelle. And Nalini, can you describe the process involved in transferring an H1B visa holder? And I imagine we can't dedicate the entire webinar to it, so I know you'll be succinct. And I guess employers might want to know as well, is it an onerous process? I think you're on mute, Nalini, sorry.
There I am. The good news is that the H1B talent you're looking at has already been counted against the cap. So you're not against that. So they are freely available to work for you, provided there are certain criteria that are fulfilled. For instance, I mean, there are three big biggies are education, experience, and job duties. And these need to match, so that when they go from one job to another job, the H1B can, USCIS can say, okay, this person is a fit, and they can go over. So the employer does that kind of background search while they are choosing the talent to transfer from one company to another. When a person has been laid off, that 60 days is basically the time within which they have to find a second job. And this was started about, during the last downturn. It used to be 3 days. They've made it 60 days. I think it's my next thing is I need to keep calling every congressman and US senator saying, make the 60 days longer so that these people can continue and find, because these are all talented people. She said their tech talent is lost talent if you don't give them another job. So for them, this is this would be a wonderful thing for the US economy. So basically the process is you identify, you file a labor condition application, which is granted within 7 days by the Department of Labor. You take that and you put all the documentation together and file it with the USCIS. You can file it premium processing so that you get a reply within 15 days. And in the meantime, when the receipts have been received, the person can work for you, for your company. And I think my job is to make it simple, easy, and to take the fear out of this process. I think that's my message to every employer on the call.
Thanks so much, Nalini. I know that will be of comfort to many ears here on the webinar today. And as you mentioned, like 60 days is so short, particularly around the holidays, that it seems like it's an even shorter time. So definitely something that definitely needs to be addressed. Betsy, back to you. What does St. Louis have to offer immigrants, and how has the region differentiated itself in that regard?
Yeah, I just want to build on what Nalini said, is that some of these individuals, they may be hitting 30, 40 days right now. So, and they'll need time for the immigration lawyers to do that filing. And so I'm sure Michelle will mention this as well, when they've had their experiences of switching someone's visa from one employer to another. But it's really important that our potential employers look at these candidates quickly and do their Zoom interviews and get this in place. And I think for the St. Louis employers, there are many things to stress about the ability to have someone come to St. Louis. And in fact, there was just a research study that was published by the George W. Bush Studies through SMU University this past week. And it basically put St. Louis as number 6 out of the top 10 regions where immigrants can thrive, because we have a low cost of living, we have welcoming policies, we have programs from a number of organizations, including the St. Louis Mosaic Project, where a person who's working here and their family are going to be welcomed and have opportunities for both personal and professional opportunities. So we are getting recognized as a region that can make that happen. So it really goes way beyond just the job, but someone has to be looking for a place where they're going to be able to thrive personally, and they're going to also have that professional opportunity. And that's something that's extremely important. And it's something that we do see is important to our foreign-born talent pool. When we look at these tech workers, they are looking for a place that they can grow. And they're also often married to someone who also has technical skills and our professional connector programs and opportunities in St. Louis can help both a single career and a dual career couple find their home in St. Louis.
Great, thanks, Betsy. And I know at the World Trade Center, as you know well, and at the partnership, we are so proud of the work that Mosaic has done. And coming up on your 10-year anniversary, this hasn't been an overnight success. This has been something that's been worked on for many, many years. So we're very excited about that acknowledgement. Emily, when we talk about tech talent, which industry sectors are we referencing in particular, or is it kind of at this point, it's just omnipresent and part of every job?
Well, I mean, I think that's one of the biggest challenges in really quantifying what makes a tech job. There is no like percentage, like if at some point how much you're working in technology or IT, that your job suddenly becomes tech related or tech enabled. For Tech STL, we focus predominantly on the data economy. We're looking at IT related businesses and companies and emerging technology. What's great is that St. Louis has such a strong backbone of tech related corporations and tech occupations that they make our job really easy. That, our city has such strong representation in cybersecurity and geospatial, in agtech and biotech, as well as in fintech. But we actually, one of the quiet backbones of technology in St. Louis is artificial intelligence, that we have such strong representation in our corporate partners as well as in our startup community, that AI is kind of this integrating technology piece here in the city, and it creates opportunity in cyber related jobs and data analysts, in both software and hardware engineering, that we've got so many growing, thriving subsectors in the community, because we have such strong research institution universities that are really activating some of this frontline innovation. But we also have a massive corporate network here in the city, and across the region, that we have big players like MasterCard, like Square and Edward Jones, as well as strong healthcare providers that do open up more of the cross sector of IT and biohealth, digital health, health tech type programs. So I'd say that's the biggest strong suit in the St. Louis community is more of bridging technology with our other strong sectors that we have, that we've got so many opportunities depending upon what the background is and interest is in technology, is how you want to use that, and join some of the strong corporations and startups that we have here in the city.
Emily, you were talking about the fact that there are close to 5,000 jobs posted on your website now, but how many openings does our region really have in technology jobs? And how do you advise some of these people who are looking to find a match to go about finding all these opportunities that St. Louis has?
Well, so we are seeing that St. Louis has around 38,000 open tech jobs here in the MSA. We are working hard to be able to gather all that information. I mean, obviously going to the major job systems like Indeed and LinkedIn is a great way to get started. Also on our tech job board, we are bringing in both the jobs that are available here in the region as well as those that are available remote. So, I mean, the remote working opportunity is very real and very present, and trying to make sure that we're also supporting that network.
And I think almost at least half of the jobs that St. Louis companies are looking to fill in technology are remote. So if someone is an H1B person who's been laid off, they could, really have one of these remote jobs and then stay if they're located in Seattle or the Bay Area. So that's a big opportunity if they can quickly find that remote job and make that match.
Absolutely. Our bigger need is that we need talent that can hit the ground running, right? And with the hybrid environment and remote workers, we're seeing an increase not only in talent migration of those that are moving to the St. Louis area, that St. Louis is the 16th highest metro when it comes to talent migration. The state of Missouri is number 10 in the country, but also just the increase in remote working, that a lot of our corporations are very supportive of that, and it definitely expands the amount of job opportunities that you can find within the area.
That's a very comforting statistic, Emily. The 16th highest metro for talent migration. That's interesting. I hadn't heard that before. So good to know. We can add that to our list of advantages here in St. Louis. Michelle, turning to you as a company that has gone through the process of hiring somebody with an H1B visa, can you describe a little bit for us how that went and what advice you would offer to companies looking to hire H1Bs?
Sure. I would say the process for us at this point, it's something that's common to us, right? It's something that we know because we do have a large portion of individuals that are on visas. What I would say to companies who maybe haven't sponsored anyone previously is don't be scared of the process. It make certain that you're partnering with an outside counsel. That would be probably my number one advice instead of trying to do it on your own, because they can help you through the process and watch for any of the pitfalls or maybe things that you need to watch out for, things such as qualifications of the job versus what a person has and making sure they match so that the process goes as smoothly and quickly as possible, because after all, we are dealing with our government. So it doesn't, sometimes you're at the bequest of them. But for an H-1B transfer, the process is relatively seamless. A person's already been on a visa. They've already gone through a number of qualifications. Ensuring that you're matching what their current visa and H-1 category is to your job are things to take into consideration. But your outside counsel can help with that. I would also say, if you're concerned of what does this mean for us, it brings another point of diversity to your organization. And we all know that more diverse talent brings better business to you as an organization, better results. They have different experiences, different backgrounds, different systems and points of views that they've seen. And that can only help you as a company do better business. We've proven it. I think tons of studies have proven it. We don't need to belabor that point, but think about that aspect. If you're hiring individuals that are new and you've not hired individuals on a visa before, I would encourage you to also reach out to organizations like the World Trade Center, Betsy, who named programs that we can have to support, because people want to be connected. They want to be involved and see people that are like them and their background that they can match. And so that they build a sense of community in the community that they're in, particularly if they're going to relocate to St. Louis. That's really important. And if you're hiring remotely, then make certain that and this is true whether it's a visa or not, make certain that you're creating an aspect where people feel connected to your organization, that onboarding piece, that ability for a manager to connect with the person on a personal level so that they become connected to your organization is critical. If they're not connected to your organization, then the likelihood of them staying to your organization is small. So that's really critical.
Thanks so much, Michelle. Betsy, did you want to elaborate a little bit on that, on the programs that
yes,
Mosaic offers?
I was wondering how quickly, Michelle, you've been able to move when you've had someone transferring an H-1B, in terms of the time frame that it's taken you in the past. And if you had to move quickly, could you do that if you needed to?
We can. I would say if someone's had a visa in the past, at the point where we make an offer and have an acceptance, as Nalini said, the first step is getting an approval on the salary, right, which is our labor condition application. That takes 7 days. Once you get that back, the process, and if you can do premium processing, that's a 14-day period to get either a decision or a request for further evidence. So that moves pretty quickly. I think the key is making a selection quick, right? So if you're an organization that hasn't moved to video interviewing, in particular, if you're interviewing on the outside, you've got to move to video. Being able to work through your technical interviews and your management interviews quickly to make a decision is critical. It's critical right now, no matter what, right? Because talent, there's not a lot of talent out there, and talent have multiple opportunities. So in order to get to that decision point, you want to do that as quickly as possible, but not sacrifice the process, right? You don't want to sacrifice the process of making a right decision, but you do need to do that as quick as possible.
So I'd like to add something to what Michelle just said, is that, if you're an H-1B person looking for a job, it doesn't have to be a full-time job. It can even be a part-time job. So you can work 20 hours a week, you can work for 2 different employers. You can also work for a high institution of higher education who are not counted against that $65,000 number cap. So you can work for them because you've already been counted against the cap that comes out every March. So those are all different opportunities for employers to look at, even if they don't have full-time jobs open in their organization.
Very good points there, Nalini. Thank you. We're going to stick with you for just a moment there, Nalini. Are there other routes available to H-1B visa holders if they fail to secure a position within that narrow 60-day window? What else can they?
So,
can they do?
if they don't secure something within the 60-day window, they need to go to another visa. And so I've had people who have variously decided in their point in life, maybe they need to go to get a US master's. And so they move to an F visa, a student visa, and then go for another US master's that allows them to work 3 years on OPT once their master's STEM master's is over. So, or they might just go into the next one, AI is a huge area in which, and cybersecurity, these are all very big areas in which everybody's recruiting. And at this point, really, if you look at any business, every business is a tech business, because no employer can work without tech, without having some platform. My business is law, but we have tech support from Kentucky who actually does all our tech work here. Otherwise, I cannot be functioning with our, the networking and the remote offices, the virtual stuff that all of us are doing right now. And as Michelle says, having a diverse workforce really helps the bottom line. I have seen this in a lot of employers when they bring on new H1B visa holders, other visa holders into their community. It does help quite a bit. The other thing I want to talk about is a couple of other things, is that just like H1B, there are special carve-outs with certain treaty countries like Australia or Singapore or Chile. Now, these people have special carve-outs. They come within the H1B, but they are special carve-outs. They apply for it from their country. So if the H1B is from these countries, maybe they can go back and switch to those other visas if those are still available for them to come on in. So that's something to think about. If they're from Canada or Mexico, they could switch from an H1B to a TN visa, because those are also treaty visas. So these are all ideas we can work with, which may be actually faster than even moving to an F visa status. The reason people don't go to these other visa categories other than the H1B, because that does not give them an opportunity to file for permanent residency, get a green card in the United States, which is like we are like the gold standard, right? I don't care what anybody says. We are the gold standard. People want to come here because life here is an opportunity in life, career and life are much better. So, I mean, look at me. Immigrant here, but for 30 plus years, So, I mean, it's the same thing. The other thing I also want to talk about is travel. So if you're an immigrant to this country, you're born with your passport. So talk to your counsel about traveling on your visa. If you don't have a visa stamp in your passport, you may, when you go back to your home country, you may need that visa stamp. So that's something to think about a little bit. But again, you have opportunities like, the job boards here in St. Louis, and like Emily talked about. I mean, those are great outlets for other visa holders to come to St. Louis.
So, but Nalini, what happens to the talent for the United States and for St. Louis? Let's say many of these people, many are from India and other places, they have to go home. They go home. Well, can they then continue to interview with American companies? Do they have to then go back through the lottery if they want to hire them later and they're out of status for the first visa? Do they have to go back again?
So when the person was an H1B visa and they cannot find it in 60 days, you're asking that person to wind up their life and go home. They can't do that. But since they've already been counted against that cap, they have the opportunity to come back on the same H1B visa. So then a new employer can hire them to come back to the US on the H1B visa. And then their H1B visa, especially if they have time left on their visa, they can come into the United States and then they can the employer can extend their visa, except that the new employer has to file a new petition, just like I outlined, a new petition for them to, and they have to appear at the consulate and come back. So
at least it gives a little more hope that with our technology and video interviewing, et cetera, that all this tech talent may not totally be lost to the United States if some of our employers can continue to talk to good candidates and then maybe again just bring them back, because we just need this talent in the country. And it's so short-sighted that no thought was given to the fact that these layoffs from Twitter and Google and Meta were going to all just suddenly put people into a tailspin of a 60-day decision.
Yes, so lots of tech companies are laying off. I think they hired a lot of people when, you know, when the going was good, and suddenly they found themselves heavy with talent, and then suddenly they're saying their bottom line doesn't support it. Unfortunately, it's first in, first out. I mean, that seems to be the case.
And I would add to what Nalini said about the visas and going back. For companies like us, and we have this conversation every day, if we cannot have someone that can, you know, we can secure their visa in a timely manner, we have other operations. So if you're a candidate and you're on this call, look at companies that have a global presence, because I literally just had this conversation yesterday. Well, can we move this person to Asia, right? And can we hire them in Hong Kong for a period until we can bring them back? So there are other opportunities, and at least you have a connection then with the US. Ultimately, we want to keep our talent, right? As a corporation, we want to keep the talent here as well, where we have the opportunities. But when you can meet with companies that have multinational locations, there might be other opportunities where you might be for a period in another location with the ability to come back.
To what Michelle says, I mean, one of the things employees may want to think about is that, especially if this person is supervising a team, they can be moved over, if they're a global company, moved overseas, keep them there for a year, and then bring them back in a managerial capacity. Now, they move from an H visa to an L visa, and then the actually filing for a permanent residency is much shorter step than even going through the H1B visa. So the tech talent is not lost, and you know the employee continues to grow with the company.
Great information. Thank you, Nalini. And I certainly concur on the attractiveness of the US as a destination. I came, and particularly in St. Louis, I came to St. Louis in 2003 for 5 years, and that was quite a while ago. So it has a way of drawing you in. And one of the ways is, of course, with particularly now, is I always tell Betsy, I would have loved if Mosaic was around in 2003. So Betsy, can you perhaps shed a spotlight a little bit on the programs and the support that Mosaic has now in position for newly arrived immigrants and their families?
Yes, so thanks. We work with people who are already work authorized. We get calls every week from people outside the US who say, oh, we know that Mosaic wants to bring people to St. Louis. Can you give me a visa? And I'm like, no, we can't. But for people who are work authorized in the United States, you know, we can help them with connections toward jobs. We post jobs on our website. We link people through our professional connector program with someone in their field so that they can make relationships and then find out about job openings in their own field, because our team is not an expert in each of these areas. We also have social programs for the individual who's moved or for their spouse that connect them to other women or men in the region that are either from their home country or are international. And we work with a mentor program where local women mentor some of the international women as well. We have social activities once a month. We'll be starting again next month, called St. Louis 101, where local people and international people come together. And we have speakers and events so that they can connect with each other and also connect more deeply to St. Louis. So that's something that we do, including our work with what we call Mosaic Ambassador companies and organizations. Actually, we just announced this week that the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis is our newest 52nd Mosaic Ambassador organization. And we have K through 12 schools, 108 of them, and we have universities, 17, that we work with to try to both advise the international students and the career service offices and make connections with people like Michelle at the employers, where sometimes they already have great relationships, but sometimes we can make a new connection.
Fantastic. And as we always say at the office, it's so important for the family as well to feel, to feel connected. That's so crucial. So that terrific work that Mosaic is doing there. Emily, what are the implications, just playing kind of devil's advocate here for a minute, if we can't fill these tech positions here in the region, what are the implications?
Well, I mean, I think the harsh reality is that we can't. right? And that's what every city is facing, right? Is that the current demand that we have for tech positions are very, very difficult to fill. The technical skills are in high demand, and they're only going to become increasingly more so, right? So they're anticipating that within the next 5 years, 95% of all occupations are going to require certain tech skills, right? So these are going to become even more important for us to be developing within our workforce, that communities are having to do a better job of making it easy to attract the kind of tech talent that they need, to retain the talent that we need, as well as making opportunities to look at reskilling and upskilling, so we're able to continually expand the level of tech skills that we have here in the community. I think that comes down to making sure that we have the right partners in the room who are telling great stories around the opportunities that are available in their city, that we're talking about what kind of opportunity there is here in St. Louis, that we are attracting fresh talent and more diverse talent to our city, because it is so difficult to meet these kinds of demands. And also knowing, like we said, that, here in St. Louis, we have over or almost 40,000 open tech jobs right now. And that's only going to increase, right? As all of our companies are continuing to expand the level of technology in their company, that we're always going to be looking for this talent. So it is the great challenge that we have as communities of how are we helping our area companies and hiring partners to really meet the demand of the market, that this isn't going away, that it's only going to increase. And it's something that we're going to have to just keep making it easier for great talent to find the kinds of job opportunities that are out there, because they are definitely there.
Wonderful, thank you. And just underscores the importance of what we're all discussing today when you hear that information. Michelle, how can foreign nationals set themselves apart to be considered kind of stronger candidates for employment?
It's an interesting question. If I'm being honest, I would say I would probably give this advice to anyone of how to set yourself apart. That goes to what you present to a company. When we look for candidates and resumes, we're not looking for just a list of skills that you have. We want to know what you've accomplished. So if you're actually putting together a CV, you need to start with what you've accomplished, what projects you've worked on, what the results of those projects were. Actually putting context around what you've done, not just a list of responsibilities, because we believe technology can be trained, but I want to know what you've been able to accomplish. I think also making certain that you're connecting. If you want to stand apart, if you see a job opening, then find individuals within that organization that either have a like skill or maybe be on a hiring team or a talent acquisition team, and connect with those individuals. When you actually start to build a connection with an organization or people within that organization, that is one more way where you can connect and get an in, so to speak, to an organization and start to build those relationships, because hiring is relational, right? It is building that and helping an organization get to know you as well as a company, you to know a company. I always say interviewing is a two-way street. You should be checking out companies as much as they're checking out you. So with that, I would say be inquisitive, ask questions, and find multiple ways to follow up after you have a conversation. Don't ghost people. Even if you're not interested, and that's okay, right? It may not be a fit for you. Don't ghost. You never know what might come down, 2 jobs or 2 years down the pipeline. We hire people all the time that we talked to 2 years ago or 3 years ago, or maybe it just wasn't the right time for them, or maybe for us, but staying in contact. And I know we have people with immediate needs and wanting to find a job. I also say finding a job is like a job. So set hours for yourself to actually go out and look for a job. Set, a time, I'm starting at 8 and I'm ending at 2, whatever that is for you, but make certain that you are casting your net wide, and also that you are specific. Don't just apply to anything. That would be the other thing, right? So if you find a company and you want to apply to 20 jobs, I would not probably recommend that. I would recommend picking the ones that actually are positions that match what you want to do that align with your skill set. Many companies, if they see someone that's applied to 20 jobs, they start to question, is what the person's saying really real, right? So I would be specific about what you're looking for.
Wonderful advice, and I love the hiring is relational. That's certainly very, very true. Great advice there. Thank you, Michelle. Nalini, turning, I suppose, towards the future a little bit, what policy changes do you see kind of coming down the pike with regard to immigration, and how will they affect tech talent, I suppose, in particular?
I think a couple of things that are coming down the pipeline. There's been talk about removing the caps on per country status. That means basically every country has 7% of the immigrant visas allotted. And of course, as you know, the longest queues are for China and India. So that will attract more talent to the United States. If there's a chance of obtaining permanent residency earlier than 50 years, as it is right now, that's really going to attract it. The other thing they are doing, and I just applaud this, is for spouses. So I think Michelle talked about spouses, and Emily talked about spouses, and so did Betsy. The thing with spouses is that a lot of the visa holders' spouses are also equally tech talented. And that's a pool we are completely leaving out. And recognizing this, USCIS enables some of the spouses to work. So the dependents of L visas can work. So employers look at those people also. E3 visa spouses can work. These are Australian citizens. So, I mean, those are all people we want to look at. Some H1B spouses can work. And some of the H1B spouses are also H1B holders themselves. So somebody asked me about what can they do. I think, Stella, you asked me what can they do, and I missed saying this, is that if your spouse is already an H1B holder and you have lost your job, you can go as a dependent spouse of that H1B holder and then go to school and, get a better skill set, a US master's degree maybe, and then do something with that. And especially if one of the H1B holders already has the employers already started the green card process at a certain stage when the I-140, which is the first part of the green card, has been filed, the dependent spouse is eligible to work and can apply for employment authorization. So when you're looking for tech talent, look at the spouses. They may also be eligible to work in the United States. And that will be a great incentive for people to move to St. Louis if both spouses can work here. And World Trade Center and Mosaic Project has this global spousal group as well, which will also bring a lot of support, community support to global spouses. These are some of the ideas that people can, put into place to be able to stay and work and live here in the United States.
Thanks so much, Nalini. So just a reminder, if you do have any questions, please pose those in the Q&A section. And Betsy, I think you've already answered one here, but just in case people haven't a chance to look. We had a question from Ellie, and she's wondering, would someone on OPT be considered work authorized? So Betsy, if you want to just kind of reiterate what you've written here.
We have a huge resource of international students as a talent pool for the region. And the majority of them do have STEM degrees, which will allow them to have 3 years to work under their student F visa with an employer. If it's not in the STEM field, it's 1 year. So they are work authorized while they have their OPT status in a sense, but we at the Mosaic Project do not work on connecting them because they ultimately are going to need sponsorship. And that is something that they're going to have to work out with their potential OPT employer, whether that will or will not be a sponsorship job. And as well, we don't work with 9,000 international students in the region because we can't. We're a team of 3, and we work with the career service offices. So I think the answer, and again, Michelle and Nalini, you may have thoughts as well, but often the applicants are asked, do you need work sponsorship? And it's a tricky question because under OPT, they already are work authorized, but longer term they will. So what is your thought on that question?
Yeah, I would say for us, we have students that, go through our intern program that convert. They're on an OPT. If you're an organization interested in hiring someone on OPT, my advice would be to immediately apply for their H1 as well each year that you can, because it is a lottery system. So if you have someone that's on a 3-year, you can potentially, depending on timing, have 3 chances to get that H1 application. So I would say if you're hiring someone OPT, don't wait. Immediately start applying for the H1. Every chance that you get.
Some international students that are, happy to only work a year
Yep.
or a few because they do plan to go home. But if you are someone that does hope to be able to convert it, then you truly do need to be looking for companies that have had experience in that conversion and are going to be looking at you as a long-term talent.
So I think, my theme of don't be afraid to hire foreign talent. Students are the low-hanging fruit. So employers really don't have to do anything other than having a training plan. They go through the school to be work authorized. They do everything on their own and they come to you as ready. So you don't have to sponsor them. These people it's like you can try these people out. And like Michelle said, file H1B for them every year. If you are some institution of higher education, you can file H1B at any time. You don't have to wait for the cap. So that's something also we want to think about and look at.
I want to just add to that when Stella, you asked me, what does the Mosaic Project do? One of the other things we do is often if employers are not used to this process, they'll call us and say, we really want to hire someone, but we don't know how to do it. And we have a list of different immigration lawyers, and we'll give them several names of people that they can confer with and then select somebody, because you do need the expertise, and that's something that's important. Sometimes the international talent thinks it's the cost that is the barrier. And the answer is it's usually not the cost, because if you're hiring someone in long-term over years, you want them to be your talent. It's not the cost, but it does take a commitment to the expertise, getting an immigration lawyer involved, having your HR people track this, because there are certain deadlines and timing. So you have to have more of a commitment than just say, hired them, we're done. You have to have a commitment to wanting to keep that talent and to stay in compliance. And we give some advice and some connections for that.
I think employers want to have like this actual strategy when they're just like anything else. If I'm going to onboard a person who needs on a visa, I need to understand a little bit. Talk to any outside counsel and be happy to talk with you about what the requirements are. But there needs to be a strategy to onboard persons with visas.
All right, thank you. And thank you, Betsy. We will include, of course, a link to the Mosaic Project and the other websites from the panelists in the follow-up email that we send. Hopefully by the end of this week, you'll get that in your inbox with a copy of the recording. So just a reminder, any other questions, just pose those in the Q&A. I did just want to give the panelists kind of an opportunity, if there's anything else we haven't discussed that you think might be important to share on this particular topic, feel free to jump in.
One thing I would say, and I think I've been shocked learning from Emily how many tech openings we have in the region, is, the person who is on this webinar listening, or someone in one of our entrepreneurial tech companies or larger tech companies, you may not be the right person to make the decision about looking at this international talent source. But if you can talk to your people and say, let me connect you to some other people who can help you understand this tech resource, we really are here to help, because I just think our region is not going to be able to grow and thrive if we don't fill these jobs, and we can't grow our own talent fast enough. The K through 12 pipeline, there's a lot of work, but we can't grow young people fast enough. So what are we going to do as a region? And so we need everyone to understand that international talent is one of our solutions, one of several. But if we don't use the international talent, we are not going to thrive. And I just think Emily and the tech region needs to understand that we need to marry up their needs with the skill sets of international people. Otherwise, we cannot make it as a region, it appears to me.
I think the other thing is that if we don't employ these people in our country here, they're going to go back to their home country and they're going to become the competition. So what you are doing here is educating everybody over here, then sending them overseas, and then they start businesses there with all the knowledge they've learned over here. So something to think about as well.
Certainly that competitive edge, we do want to retain that for sure. Yes, good points. Emily, as you were mentioned in Betsy's response there, I want to give you an opportunity to respond.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is the challenge of the generation right now, is how are we racing to meet these needs, right? The technology is becoming even more critical it's the bedrock of our economy in every city. And I think the reality too is that while, for Tech STL, we are both homegrown talent and working to attract and retain outside talent, right? That there's no way that we can grow and meet the talent needs just by upskilling and reskilling our local talent. That we have to be a place, we have to be a destination, we have to attract that fresh talent. And just as you said, Stella, that to be competitive, and I think Michelle said this too, to be competitive, you need diverse perspectives, right? That the reality is technology is solving global needs. It is not solving the needs of just white people, right? It's not just solving the needs of Americans. That it is a fast-paced industry, and that you need diverse perspectives and experiences at the table at the time that you need them, right? And so it's the tech companies, diversity is not just a nice to have, it's a need to have. And so working to really make it easy for them to find the kind of talent that they need to be competitive so that they can be more successful and then stay in cities like St. Louis. So this is definitely a time for opportunity for those that have those tech skills, and finding the cities where they want to be, right? Like ultimately it's always asking yourself the question of, what is the place that I want to be in? Where's the place that I want to raise a family or that I want to grow old in? And really building, putting down roots in the community that really reflects those values. And so while it is challenging to lose your job, it always is, being able to find a new home and find a place that may be a better fit for you and your family is always a beautiful opportunity. And so it's our job as a city to do a better job of talking about what it's like to live here, and what it's like to raise a family here. And that we aren't just offering great job opportunities, we're also offering great lifestyle opportunities. So how we're really celebrating the community that we have here in St. Louis and making it clear that people could build a great life here.
I think immigrants, I think bottom line, may I just say one thing?
Oh, of
immigrants
course,
as a bottom line contribute not only to, insurance and banking and real estate and taxes, both from the employer and employee standpoint. They're good for the state, they're good for the city, they're good for the county, because they are an economic multiplier for the economy. And even the travel industry. Look at Lufthansa. So definitely, that's my 2 cents.
Good points. And Emily, very well said, spoken like a true economic developer. So well done. Michelle, I did want to give you a chance as well to have any kind of final thoughts there.
Sure. I would just tack on to what everyone else said, right? Attraction breeds attraction, right? And so we want to create a space within St. Louis that is attractive to all worker types. You heard the beginning of that Emily quoted being 16 in migration to St. Louis. That was not the case even 5 years ago or 10 years ago. We've worked really hard to invest in this organization, in this economy, in this community, to build an environment that is welcoming to international individuals. And when that continues, if you're on this call and you don't live in this area, I would say St. Louis is a great place. Most people don't think that there's that many jobs, 38,000 jobs in the metropolitan area. So there are opportunities locally. But if you're a company looking for talent, I would say be open to remote workers. That in our environment is key to actually attracting and filling those jobs that you need. So being able to find talent where they're at and still have a successful career with your company is important. And there's opportunity on both sides.
Betsy, I think as we were discussing putting this event together, you made a very good point about the difference between a remote worker and a remote job. Could you just maybe give us a little reminder there? Because that was very helpful, I think, as we were planning this.
Yes, I mean, in some ways, we as a region will benefit if there are people who have jobs in other cities but would like to have that job and have their base and to live in St. Louis and work for a company that's not in St. Louis. And so that would be, they would live here, but the job would be remote somewhere else. But we also have companies here that have jobs that can be done outside of St. Louis, but help support our St. Louis companies. And that's remote in the different direction where the person is remote, but the job is St. Louis. So I think we need to think about both of those opportunities because talent is going to go where talent is going to go.
Great, thank you. And thank you, Michelle, for those comments too. We do have a comment from Day. He says, Walmart paid 16 billion to acquire Flipkart in India. It appears the founders of Flipkart, oops, it just disappeared on me. I think the gist of it was the founders of Flipkart went to India because of visa issues. So again, just reinforcing the importance of the topic we're talking about right now. Emily, I didn't know if you had anything else you wanted to add there. Just saw you popping back on. So
no, I'm grateful for the opportunity to be able to have this conversation. I feel like as many times as we can get all of these initiatives in the same room talking about the same thing, it makes it easier for people to see the full extent of opportunity. So thank you for the chance to be here today.
Absolutely.
And I would just build also on what Day has said here, that for where any of us have a chance to speak to our legislative people at the state and the federal level to explain that we need to think about common sense visa policies that are going to allow us as a country to attract and keep talent. Canada has done a better job. We are not doing a winning job. And so where you have chances for yourself and your organizations to put in a plea for more thoughtful visa and immigration policies so that we will get the workers we need in the fields we need, that's very valuable.
I feel like we always end on that note, Betsy, and it's worth reinforcing that, you know, the system needs attention and needs improvement for sure, and particularly as we're seeing that from, you know, from other countries who are kind of getting their act together there. So very important point to reinforce. Well, it just remains for me to thank you all again so much. Thank you to our panelists. This was a great discussion. I feel like we could go on forever, and we will send as much information as we can, as I mentioned earlier, to the attendees. You'll have a copy of the recording and all of the various websites of the representing the panelists and ways to get in touch with them. So thank you again to Betsy, Emily, Michelle and Nalini. Always a good discussion, and as I said, one particularly that's so important and so timely both for our region and really for the nation as a whole. And thank you to our attendees for joining us, as I said, particularly in December. I know everybody is very busy running around, so wish you all very, very happy holidays and all the very best in 2023. And of course, we look forward to seeing you and to hosting you for many, many more events in the coming months. Take care. Thanks, everyone.